the question that I asked all of you then is, what is a religion? What is a deen? How does one define deen? Let us look first at the Quran and then give some anthropological and cultural and critical and general definitions, and then inshallah open the floor for Q&A. If you look at the Quran defines deen in a number of ways. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawm ad-Din. What is Yawm ad-Din over here? You all know, the day of judgment. So one of the aspects of deen is accountability. Deen makes you accountable to something. For something to be a deen, there must be a level of, I have to answer for what I'm doing. And this is where generally a higher power comes in. That's one aspect of deen. Another aspect, Surah Shura verse 21. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاء شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ مَا لَمْ يَأْذَنْ بِهِ اللَّهِ. Do they have other gods that have legislated from the deen what Allah has not allowed them to legislate? So a second definition of deen is legislation, code of conduct, ethics, values, systems. أَمْ لَهُمْ شُرَكَاءَ شَرَعُوا لَهُمْ مِنَ الدِّينِ. The deen provides a framework, a template of life. The deen provides a code of conduct. The deen is your philosophy of living, your inner moral compass, and everybody has some code that they live by. Everybody has some code that they live by. That code is a deen. In another verse in the Quran, the famous story of Yusuf alayhi salam, verse 76 in Yusuf, مَا كَانَ لِيَأْخُذَ أَخَاهُ فِي دِينِ الْمَلِكِ. He could not have taken his brother in accordance with the deen of the Malik. Now this is really interesting here, because Allah uses deen in a system that in and of itself doesn't have a God. Because Allah is talking about the laws of Egypt. Allah is talking about the laws of Egypt. And Allah is saying, He could not have held Binyamin in accordance with the laws of Egypt unless he did this ruse of, the keys and all that, the goblet, the drinking cup. You understand the drinking cup? You understand the story. Allah uses deen here to then signify governance and laws, which is similar to number 2 but slightly different. The point here, therefore, we can extract from the Quran that what makes a religion perfectly a religion is a system of conduct and a framework of living that also has an accountability. This is the perfect deen. You have a system of conduct and a governance and a framework of living in which you're also going to be accountable for your actions. However, if one of these 3 pillars is not there, you still have a partial deen. The perfect deen will have all of them. But if one of these is not there, but you're still having part of these 3 aspects of the concept of deen, you can still call it a deen. And therefore, from the Islamic perspective, any system of ethics, any system that you live by, any system that you believe in is in reality your deen. This is very clear from the Quran. How do Western academics define religion? Again, that is a very long class, but interesting to note here. And again, my goal in this class, brothers and sisters, is to introduce you to multiple subjects and to cause you to pique your curiosity, to go and study on your own, to introduce you to names, to figures, to concepts, to ideas. I'm not an expert in anthropology. I'm sure some of you know more than I do, and that's great. But the goal is to just, pique your curiosity and to together, inshallah ta'ala, benefit one another and make you realize the interdisciplinary nature of knowledge. Knowledge by its nature is interdisciplinary. And even as we discuss Islam, I think it is important to bring other facets of knowledge and benefit from it as well. So one of the interesting aspects of the definition of religion is the following. Earlier anthropologists seemed to define religion more metaphysically i.e., something to do with the divine, than modern researchers and critical thinkers and philosophers. In other words, there is a marked shift in understanding that religion is not just about a God. And even modern secular humanists, modern political philosophers, modern postmodernistic, if you like, thinkers are now defining religion without necessarily mentioning a higher being, because they understand that religion is more than just a higher being. So to give you a very brief sampling, one of the founders of anthropology, E.B. Tyler, in 1850 or something, he writes, his definition is, religion is the belief in spiritual beings. So 170 years ago, this is very simple. It's like, religion means you're believing in something supernatural, spiritual, beyond this world. Emil Durkheim, and all of you who study sociology know who Durkheim is. Durkheim defines religion as a unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things. A unified system of beliefs and practices relative to sacred things which unite into a single community called the church, and all who adhere to them are part of that collective. So this is from a sociological perspective. Again, sacredness is invoked. Another famous anthropologist of the last century, Clifford Geertz, again, an iconic name in religion, in the sociology of religion, and anthropology of religion. Clifford Geertz writes, religion is a system of symbols which acts to establish powerful, pervasive, and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence, and it goes on and on. So, point is, for him, religion is something that provides mystical meaning, supernatural meaning to your life. The Oxford Dictionary, the most latest definition of religion is the belief in and worship of a superhuman controlling power. So you have these basic definitions, all of which involve something that is supernatural, mystical, superhuman, a god. This is, I would say, antiquated. And most modern definitions of religion actually do not even mention the concept of a god anymore. And in fact, one of the most important seminal minds who began this shift is somebody that I want to introduce you today in the next 5 minutes, and that is still alive right now, Talal Asad. Talal Asad. Talal Asad is one of the most prominent postmodernist anthropologists of our times, and he is the son of the famous Muhammad Asad. If you don't know who Muhammad Asad is, you should definitely Google and find out. Muhammad Asad was a Jewish convert to Islam back in the 1920s and 30s. He traveled to Saudi Arabia, met King Abdul Aziz, the founder, became a Saudi citizen, married a Bedouin lady in Mecca, and in the 1930s gave birth to Talal Asad. So Talal Asad's father is a Polish Jew, and his mother is a Bedouin Arab. I just find this so bizarre. So he has cousins that are Polish Jews, first cousins, and he has cousins that are Saudi, Makkawi, Bedouin. Like literally, this is like Talal Asad then grew up in Arabia. His father became the first foreign minister of Pakistan back in the 50s, and then he retired to Grenada, and then he passed away in the 80s or something, early 90s, I forgot when. So Muhammad Asad, that's the father. He translated the Quran, the message of the Quran. He translated Sahih Bukhari, very well-known, intellectual of the Ummah. His son is Talal Asad. Now, Talal Asad, we don't really know his religion, to be honest. He's very quiet about that. But he is a world-famous anthropologist, and he has done some innovative, ingenious research about the reality of secularism. And he has single-handedly shaped the discourse of modern secularism in the academy. He is a well-known academic. And what Talal Asad has demonstrated in a number of books, firstly in Genealogies of Religion in 1993, and then in 2003 he released his magnum opus, The Formation of the Secular. Listen to this now. Talal Asad argues, and his argument is so powerful that it has shifted the academy, that secularism is not a neutral concept. Secularism pretends to be neutral. Secularism pretends it is aloof. But secularism is a political project that shapes with and competes with religion. And Asad has shown that the assumption that secularism is neutral is absolutely false. It is a historical project rooted in Western supremacy, in a version of de-sanctified Christianity, i.e., I'm summarizing a lot of his stuff here. You could not have secularism from any faith tradition other than Christianity. Secularism emerges from failed Christianity. And therefore, it is correct to view secularism as a type of modern Christianity minus Jesus Christ. You cannot assume secularism is neutral. Secularism is its own political and cultural system. And it is a specific way of organizing society that is based on Western Christian traditions. It is not neutral. It has never been neutral. But it wishes to assume neutrality even as it exerts its supremacy against religion and especially against the religion of Islam. And he has a number of very profound points here. Of them, the very notion that religion should be a private matter, that religion should not be something public, that we need to separate religion from the public and private. He argues this notion cannot stem from any faith other than Christianity. The very notion of religion being private is not something that any other mind would possibly think of. No Jewish person could say this. No Muslim could say this. It is coming from a paradigm of Christianity. Only Christianity, which doesn't have a series of laws by and large. It doesn't have a sharia. It doesn't have a system. Only Christianity can come forth and say, oh, let us remove religion from public life here. And by insisting that religion be confined to personal space, secularism forces a specific definition of religion onto other people that might fit on Christianity easily, but it doesn't fit on non-Christian faith traditions. Hence all of the problems Muslims have living in secular lands and even Orthodox Jews have living in secular lands. Do you understand this point here, right? By defining religion in a manner that is not conducive to other faith traditions, only to Christianity, automatically secularism is having a power dynamics. It's giving a false definition, a false dichotomy of separating the private from the public. You can't separate the private from the public except in a religion that doesn't have ethical values and laws, that doesn't have a sharia, which is Christianity. Otherwise, public and private all come together. And of course, he mentions the most obvious example of this, which is, of course, what we see around the world, especially the Western lands, about Muslim dress code, female dress code here, right? The very notion that the hijab is a threat to secularism. This clearly, and this is in France and others, is well known, even in England and other places, the niqab was banned, is still banned in so many countries here. This is coming with a loaded understanding, a selective picking and choosing of what fits into the secular narrative, which is its own version of religion. As well, secularism's insistence on individualism and personal autonomy, the freedom of my choice to do as I please. Talal Asad argues, this is a notion of morality that is not stemming from many other faith traditions in which it is not about me, myself, and I only. It is about the collective good, the family, the rights of other people. The notion of privileging my personal rights over the rights of family, over the rights of other people, is not a notion that is stemming from every single culture. It is only stemming from a particular culture and a particular faith tradition. So the point here that he's saying is that secularism is not just the absence of religion. It is an active force that is competing with and reshaping religion. It is a force that is not meant to be neutral. It is a force that is meant to be active in reshaping religions that are not conducive to its version of religion. So nobody should assume that secularism is fair and impartial. Rather, secularism has its own trajectory, its own values, and its own agenda, which is quite literally to change other faith traditions in order that it matches with its understanding of religion, which is one that is stemming from its own unique, history, which is the failed, Western civilization project. As you know, Christianity has failed. We're going to talk about this later on. So to conclude here, therefore, the fact is that we as Muslims can and should understand secularism as being a type of deen. That's just bluntly, I'm just saying this. Secularism is a type of deen. How and why? I'll give you 5 examples and we'll open the floor for Q&A. Number 1, just like religions have doctrines and moral codes and ideologies, so too secularism has its rigid belief systems, its rigid understandings of political correctness, of progressive moral codes, which operate with the same zeal as religious commandments do. Again, look at how non-Muslims view the freedom of sexuality, LGBT rights or whatnot. The passion with which they're defending those rights and they think them to be correct, or First Amendment freedoms, right? Everybody has the right to practice their own religion. That is an idea. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm simply saying it is dogma. It is a belief. And it is taken as a given. And if you dare challenge it, you are not a part of their establishment. So what you have here, point number 1, doctrines and morality. Religion has its version, secularism has its version. Number 2, you have scriptures or documents that are considered to be sacred or semi-sacred. When it comes to our American secularism, it is the Constitution. Nobody really has the right to challenge the Constitution. Now, understanding, they don't say it's from God, but in the end of the day, they give it a certain metaphysical weight. That is semi-religious, quasi-religious. I agree. It's not as religious as Christians view the Bible or as Muslims view the Quran or whatever, but it is quasi-religious. It is semi-mystical. It is a founding document. Number 3, there are rituals and symbolisms and ceremonies that both religious folks and secularists do. In our religion, we have obviously plenty of rituals. In the secular side of things, so many aspects of our culture, whether it is standing for the flag, whether it's showing respect, whether it is reverence for the ideological slogans, whether it is even the burning of the flag was a massive controversy when I was growing up. I remember the Supreme Court actually had a verdict on this back in, was it 91, 92, where it went to the Supreme Court. Can you burn the flag or not? And that's allowed in America. It's not allowed in many other countries. You're not allowed to show disrespect to the flag of other countries. You will go to jail. So there are symbols and rituals that are done. In England, there's a whole ritual of poppy seeds on the remembrance of the dead. Here we are in the soldiers that gave their lives for the country. And we as well, we have memorial days. We have celebratory days in this country. Number 4, both religion and secularism have certain beliefs and certain ultimate meanings that they ascribe to life. When it comes to religion, it's understood who created us, where we're going. When it comes to humanism, existentialism, there is, especially American secularism, there is this notion of American, if you like, now again, this is a bit ambiguous here, but by and large, there is this notion amongst most Americans that our job, our purpose is to spread peace and democracy in the world. We are almost semi-appointed by some divine being to bring about betterment in the world. There's this inevitable arc of democracy, arc of justice, that there's almost an eschatology, if you like, of us doing something greater and more grandiose. And again, the example of us interfering in the Middle East, hardly anybody, really, when it comes to the people in power, we're not talking about average people. When it comes to people in power, hardly anybody is able to question why we are in every single country in the world. It's just understood. We have this exceptionalism. Who has given us this right? Nobody can answer that question. And then, of course, the final point, excommunication and heresy. Leaving the faith brings about political and social repercussions, and leaving the dogma of secularism, saying something that goes against the dogma of secularism, will bring about a cancellation known as the cancel culture, public shaming, career destruction, exclusion from mainstream discourse. You will be shunned. You might even be politically punished. You might even be economically punished in some countries. In America, we by and large cannot politically we cannot put somebody in jail, generally speaking, for First Amendment issues. But in many other countries, if you cross a certain line, you will be punished. Just like in the Sharia, if you cross a certain line, they will be punished. Bottom line, and with this, inshallah, open the floor, there are certainly parallels between secularism and religion. And for our purposes, we can say that modern Western secularism is a type of deen.